my question to you is that um, what are some of the key metabolic shifts that women experience in midlife, and how can they differentiate these hormonal changes from lifestyle-induced issues like, say, insulin resistance?
Yeah, great question. First, let's define what metabolism is, because a lot of people think all it is burning calories.
Mm,
That's one aspect of metabolism, but the actual word metabolism, the only thing that means is the speed of chemical reactions in the body. One of those chemical reactions is how many calories you burn, but there's also a lot of other aspects to metabolism. For example, there's how quickly you metabolize caffeine.
mm,
Some people they can drink coffee, like my wife, she can drink coffee at 7 p.m. and fall asleep just fine. I can have a coffee at 10 a.m. and I'm not sleeping that evening. So that's not a matter of how many calories you're burning; it's just how quickly you process caffeine. The same
mm,
as thing applies to aspirin or Tylenol or Advil, etc. So that's what metabolism means. In terms of how does metabolism change as a woman goes through menopause, surprisingly, very little. This is actually one of those myths that's really out there that, oh, I gained weight, therefore my metabolism is slower. The
mm.
gaining weight part, that's indisputable. You can step on a scale and it will tell you without judgment, without anything, just you're heavier, you're the same, or you're lighter. However, the attribution is incorrect. I gained weight because my metabolism is slower is not exactly correct. What we realized from a lot of research is that metabolism is unchanged from ages 18 to 50. Between ages 50 and 60, and every decade after 50, it drops by only about 4% per year. And
Mm.
then we have to ask ourselves, why does it drop? Three of the 4% drop because of simply a loss of muscle mass. Simple as that. In other words, if somebody is strength training properly, consistently, etc., they can hold on to their muscle mass for a very long time. And I want to distinguish between muscle mass and strength. Yes, people get weaker as they get older. However, they don't need to lose muscle as they get older. So you can maintain your muscle mass while losing strength. Of course, it's not ideal, but that's aging. But it's certainly better than losing strength and losing muscle mass together.
Mm.
And so, as long as women strength train, the metabolic damage of menopause is very, very minimal. And so, yes, I believe women when they say, I gained weight. However, I think the attribution is incorrect. I gained weight because my metabolism is slower. Well, the question is, how much did you gain? If between ages 50 and 60 you gain 4% of your weight, I believe that's because of your metabolism, because that's exactly how much metabolism slows down. If you gain more than 4%, or it happened in a shorter period of time, that is not purely due to metabolism. Maybe it's partially due to metabolism, but there are really four components to what we call total daily energy expenditure. And that just means all the calories that a person burns throughout the day. There are four of those sources, as I mentioned. One of those is metabolism, but there are three others that aren't metabolism. One very obvious source of caloric expenditure is exercise. Another not so obvious source of caloric expenditure is something called TEF. That stands for thermic effect of food. That is, whenever we eat food, we don't absorb 100% of the calories, we absorb about 90% of the calories. And so we spend about 10% of the calories that we just ate absorbing, processing, and assimilating the food that we just ate. So if somebody consumes 2,000 calories per day, they're going to
Mm.
use 200 out of those 2,000 dealing with the food that they just ate. So that is component number three. The most important one, the biggest drop in menopause, is component number four, which stands for NEAT, N-E-A-T. And broken down, that is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. These are
Mm.
small, unplanned movements throughout the day that are not formal exercise. For example, some people sit there and they click their pen. Some people sit there, they twirl their hair. Some people sit there and they bounce their ankle. These are all things you don't really put into your schedule. 10 a.m. Tuesday, bounce my ankle. You don't really do that. But these are all subconscious things that across 16 or so waking hours can add up to 900 or more calories per day. Now, when very often throughout menopause, it's NEAT that drops a lot more than metabolism. And so it's
Got
those little things that are unplanned, very subconscious. Those are the ones largely responsible for fat gain as opposed to
it. Mm.
metabolism.
Got it. Got it. So I guess that explains why so many women feel frustrated because they're doing everything that, that they have been doing, or even sometimes better, but gaining weight or feeling worse. To your point, it's the same routine might not work. There's a shift that's needed, and I guess this phase of life for most women, or anybody for that matter, as you get older, this phase for of life isn't necessarily it isn't about decline of any sort. It's about your body saying, "Hey, pay a little bit more attention." Your same approach is not going to work. You might have to shift the approach a little bit, and it's a midlife, if you will. It can be a reset, not necessarily a breakdown.
Yeah, 100%. So many women are so frustrated that they're eating the same and yet they're gaining weight. How could that be? Well,
Yeah,
they're thinking that the body is a perfect balance sheet.
yeah,
I'm eating the same, I'm exercising the same. How could that be? It's the stuff you don't plan. It's that NEAT. It's that bouncing your ankle. It's that fidgeting. So maybe you're eating the same, but your expenditure is lower. Now,
yeah.
instead of being in balance, now you have a surplus instead of being balanced or even a deficit.
Yeah. So that brings up the next important point about food. I mean, we just discussed or talked about food. So how should nutrition strategies evolve for women in midlife? Especially when it comes to managing energy, stabilizing blood sugar, and being more active. And so how should the nutrition strategies evolve?
So there are way more similarities between people over 50 and people under 50. The similarities are in terms of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc. Those are virtually identical.
Mm,
Um, there is just one small change, and that's iron. Women before menopause need iron, supplemental iron, or dietary iron. And women after menopause, because they don't lose blood on a regular basis, no longer need as much iron. They need basically the same amounts as a man of equal size. The things that are different are calories and protein. The caloric requirements go down, and the protein requirements go up.
mm,
And the reason for that is because it takes a lot of effort to process foods that are high in protein, your chicken, your tuna, etc. Just because it takes a lot of effort doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But the body can't extract the protein out of the food as well. Because of that, women over not 50 but more like 60 need more protein compared to younger women. So those are the two big differences. Calories go down, protein goes up.
got it, got it, got it. And so obviously, at any time when we talk about food, we talk about calories, nutrition, things like that. There's these fad diets and buzz about let's say Mediterranean diet, intermittent fasting, low carb, high fat, high protein, keto, all these, right? They pop up left and right, and some of them work. Some of them are just, again, they go sideways very quickly. So how
Yeah.
should women evaluate which eating approach is ideal for their unique situation, even if it's not ideal? For example, I mean, I don't think there's any diet that is ideal for anybody, but something that fits their unique situation for where they are and what their makeup looks like.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, the only three things that matter from a nutritional perspective are calories, protein, and fiber. And that's for overall
Mm,
health, not just weight loss, but overall health. These are the only three things that matter. The ratio of
mm,
carbs to fats doesn't matter. Whether you eat after six or you don't eat after six doesn't matter. If you do intermittent fasting or you don't do intermittent fasting, doesn't matter. As long as whatever diet you choose meets those three criteria, it's a good diet. Okay?
mm,
So if you look at different diets, the similarities are way, way, way greater than the differences. However, if you're a diet guru and you wrote a book and you want to say, "Hey, this is a good approach," and not just a good approach, this is superior to every other approach out there, you have to focus on the differences. And yet, look at the similarities. Every diet for weight loss tries to accomplish the same end goal, and that is reduce your calories.
mm,
Intermittent fasting does it by reducing meals, so you can have your meals in an 8-hour span. Keto diet does it by reducing carbs. But what does reducing carbs do? It reduces calories. Um, Low fat diets, well, how do they reduce calories? Well, by reducing fat.
mm.
So the similarities are much greater than differences. Just reduce calories any way you want, whether that's low fat, keto, low carb, portion control, intermittent fasting. They all work because you've reduced your calories. But it's important not to neglect protein. It's very, very important for people, women, etc., to get adequate amounts of protein. Adequate protein depends on three major factors. One, your body weight. Larger people need more food to sustain their body than smaller people. Doesn't matter if they're larger because of fat or muscle.
Mm.
Two, your activity levels. If somebody is inactive or sedentary, they need a lot less protein than somebody who is doing cardio only, and even higher than that, protein only, and about the same protein plus cardio. Sorry, strength plus cardio. Um, and then a final factor that matters in terms of protein is age. Is somebody over 60 or under 60? As I mentioned earlier, people over 60 require higher protein intakes than people under 60.
Mm.
So choose whatever diet you want. If it tastes good to you and it meets those three criteria, the right number of calories, the right amount of protein, the right amount of fiber, you're good to go.
So when you talk to your clients, the folks that take that use your help, do you do you calibrate these three factors along with their sort of their preferences, or how, what sort of diet do they like to prefer? What are their eating habits? What are the taste profile, if you will? And some people, might have dietary restriction, for example. Somebody's a vegetarian or allergic to nuts, for that matter. So do you? Because it sounds like you don't necessarily subscribe or prescribe a diet term, right? Oh,
Yeah,
hey, go on intermittent fasting or Mediterranean or keto or whatever the
yeah,
case might be. Your approach is more like, hey, let's look at this balance, the triangle balance that you just talked about of
yeah.
those calories, protein, fiber, and let's design it specifically so it is to you, not necessarily in general. Is that what's your approach on that?
Yeah, so I start them off with what are you currently doing and how can we make as few changes as possible that will still
Got
lead
it.
to your desired goal. I'm looking for what's the easiest we can do, not what's the most difficult we can do. The most
Yeah.
difficult they've already done. That's called a diet or a meal plan. And how long does it work? For 2 or 3 weeks, as long as you follow it.
Yeah.
The problem is not inherently in the biochemical makeup of that specific diet. The problem is in following the diet. So really, the issue is not nutritional. The issue is
Hmm.
behavioral, logistical, emotional. And we don't solve those kinds of problems with nutritional solutions. We need better solutions. We need to, the biggest reasons people don't stick to diets in no particular order: one, emotional eating; two, stress eating; three, lack of planning; and four, cravings. It's not
Mm.
because they're not getting that the extra cucumber in their salad. So, really, when I work with clients, I'm trying to figure out what are you currently eating? What's the
Mm.
easiest way to either reduce your calories or improve your protein or improve your fiber? That's it. I'm looking for not a massive overhaul. I'm
Yeah.
looking for the smallest change you can make.